I am your host, David Curran, and I am again joined by my co hosts, the wonderful Jeff Cooney, wave at the
Hello.
camera, and the wonderful but not as wonderful as Jeff, Sean Maroney. Nice. Yeah. So, last week.
Am I allowed to
No. Okay,
three
go ahead.
things before we go into anything that I will not be as entertaining today because I feel like a slug on fucking roller coaster to say the least.
Yeah, so Sean has, knowing that we were going to record at this time on this day, it should show in the very start of the video, he decided to go get locked.
He did.
Which I
Shamazel
don't blame
didn't
him.
say.
I would get locked right now if you don't fucking stop
Do
the
it.
shenanigans. Okay, fine. You start the recording. I'll get myself a drink.
Okay.
Like,
So, as
myself a drink and bring this and sit it on at the very least. That'll be a quick moment. You just go ahead.
Can't take that man anywhere.
No, never.
All right.
It's
So,
a danger to society.
at the time we upload, this is going to be very close in between from when I dropped the first episode. The reason for that is I am very just bad at sort of organizing my time and planning things. So I have had, on top of working a full-time job that I've soon to leave, I have been doing a bunch of other things. And so I needed to edit the video, relearn Premiere Pro while I'm at it, and just sort of get everything done before we're due to record today. And I would have, but at the time of recording this, the first episode isn't up yet because, for whatever reason, when I uploaded it to YouTube, only the first 40 minutes were there, and no. So
It was a fun experience. It sounds like.
it was.
Yeah.
It's just
That's all a learning curve.
Yeah, the fixed recording before I altered it was going to be 50 gigabytes, and the computer only has 94 gigabytes of storage. So, also, no.
Yeah.
But, when our third host comes back, we will talk about a fun week that we had, as well as a not so fun week for a very certain disgraced old wrestling promoter.
Yeah, that was a ride. We'll get to the nitty gritty of the Vince talk later
you could even
on.
say,
But
since he shows up constantly throughout it, you could say it was the last ride.
yeah, you could. You very well could. But yeah. So we'll get into the nitty gritty of the Vince talk later on. We have a segment about it. But
yeah,
I binged that in. Oh
no, go ahead.
Sean.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I binged it all the day it came out, 6 hours. It's a lot of crazy old wrestling bollocks politics to sit through. It was a fun
so
watch, but it's a lot. It was a lot. So I suppose we should shoot over to Sean to tell us about his fun week since the last time we jumped on the pod.
All right, there is a new segment. And before we get into it in stock, we're just going to talk about our week. And we're just sort of going to fold the Vince talk into this as well. But the segment is called What Do You Want to Talk About? Take it away, Jeff.
But yeah, so this segment is just basically a little catch up. If you listen to any other podcast, it's that basically the first few minutes, just chatting away about the week. I had a pretty boring week, apart from all the Vince stuff and the news and stuff, and taking notes on all the shows. I haven't got past the first episode, but I did watch the first episode of Lucha Underground because I never got into it. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Really fun seeing some familiar and not so familiar faces on there. Vampiro on commentary is fantastic, and Matt Striker trying to stay professional is also brilliant. Apart from that, the dishwasher in my job got fixed, so I won't be staying an extra 3 hours and knock back recording again. So happy days. And yeah, go on.
Yeah, just to interject, if you're wondering why the lighting is different, we decided recording at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night was probably a bad idea. So we're currently recording this at around 12:30 on a Saturday.
Which is good for 2 out of 3 of us, so that's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
apart from that, I've
You're a
Go
little bastard, you are.
but yeah, just apart from that, the rest of my week was filled up with splitting firewood because it's nearly winter in Ireland. So that means it's been cold since the start of summer. So I'm just doing that. So yeah, that was my week. Sean, how
Sean?
was your week, buddy?
Yeah, would you like to explain to the audience why you are less energetic and less offensive today?
So I've had the soul sucked out of my cock this week. Wait, are we allowed curse at this
Yeah,
point?
just go.
Well,
just go.
you've done it.
Just go.
No, but you can censor me.
We're not partnered
But
anyway. This isn't getting monetized yet.
True.
but I've been beaten, I've been battered, I've been bruised. I started work this week, and I was meant to work. I think it was 34 hours this week. So far, I've worked tomorrow. Keep in mind, I've already clocked a minimum of 37 hours. Hospitality for you. But I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm off today. I've got a podcast at 12. Like I'll be able to wake up for it in time. I'll have a couple friends over for a couple drinks. Play a couple games. See how it goes. And initially, we were going to play like Mario Party and all that. And we realized we didn't have the third controller. So I was like, you know what's just as good. I don't know if you have ever played this game. Crash Bandicoot Racing.
Yes.
Oh, savage game. Almost as good as Sonic Racing. Sonic Team Racing, actually.
But we played that initially. Honestly, I wish we stuck to it. But we played that for a little bit. It was fine. And then we played a card game to which I hold near and dear to my heart that I'll probably never play again, called Bad Choices. And here's the thing about Bad Choices. It's very much like a game that you should play with people you don't know, because it's one of those things where it's a yes or no card answer game. You have like a big deck of cards and you shuffle them out. You get like 7 to begin with, and your objective is to get rid of the cards. So how you do such is you ask a select person a card. You can choose whoever. If they answer yes, they have to take a drink and you get rid of your card. If they answer no, nobody has to drink. You have to pick up another card, right? And you get rid of all your cards that way, right? Now, we decided, because I was going to say a very offensive word there, because we're very moronic. We played the game drinking vodka and whiskey straight. Oops.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's very much like a game that you play to get to know people. However, I know both of these people 20 plus years. So we were very much just targeting each other with these questions. Like, we picked one up, it's like, oh, I know I can use this on you. And I don't remember how the game went. My last memory of last night was somewhat around like 11:30 p.m., right? And I remember having one card in my hand going, yes, I'm guaranteed to win it, because he has 2, he has 3. And it was a create your own question card. So I could literally ask any question I want. As long as they answer yes, I win. But I don't remember winning. Apparently, we played this game until 3 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know how I lost so fucking badly.
Yeah.
But I wake up in the morning, and out of the 3 of us, even the one who's fucking fine, he doesn't remember who won. So yeah,
Sounds like a good
that's
night.
just kind of,
yeah, good choices.
I wish I could tell you more. All I know is what I found out this morning, which is the 3 of us going, what the fuck happened last night? I don't know. And our friend Anne-Marie. What's up, Anne-Marie, if you ever watched this? She gave us a call, and she was like, why'd you start calling me last night? And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I got like 6 calls last night, 2 from Andrew, 2 from Stephen, 2 from like a random number. I think I got a scam call. It's like, oh, at the same time we were calling. She was like, yeah, I picked it up and it just went, wagwa! And fucking hung up. And that was me. But apparently we were calling her last night to let her know that she was, in fact, Eskimo siblings with one of the gentlemen. Yeah, with one of the gentlemen that was downstairs last night drinking. And that was a funny turn of events because she calls us in the morning to ask us this. We don't remember. Andrew remembers. He remembers everything.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah. So now I'm extremely hungover. About what time is it? An hour and a half awake. And I've caved in. The best way to get over a hangover is to still be drunk.
Hair the dog, brother.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, David, how was your week, buddy?
Yeah, for being about to exit a job, it's fairly boring. I had a bunch of things to go to and do, but like they're not anything out of the ordinary. Just just learning the software again and trying to figure out how to get this started. It's just no. So like all of the YouTube stuff is fine. It was the actual video itself that just would not play. So I hope that this new form, even though it's taking just as long to export, it'll do it.
Yeah.
But I hope I'm gonna look through the video file and see if that works. Hope to fucking God that it does.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. If so, we'll treat this as the first episode instead.
Perfect. No worries.
Interjection. All right. So, talking about good weeks. Let's talk about the Vince McMahon documentary that Netflix put out.
Oh, what a great week! What a strong week, buddy. So I'll kick off with just overviews. We're just gonna, everyone who's seen it and knows the crack. Most people who are fans of this know most of the stories, so I'm just going to give a brief overview of episode by episode. Boys will interject if they have anything. I'd just like to start with the talking heads section. So like just a brief, they had everyone like from wrestlers like Taker, Michaels, Rock, Austin, through to Linda, the McMahons, obviously. Then they had reporter, actually Tony Atlas as well. I'll mention Tony Atlas because he was bloody brilliant. And they had reporters, they had Meltzer on there. They had Founders of USA, they had different reporters, broadcaster Bob Costas, and everything in between. And Phil Mushnick as well, because he's a pretty big part of it. He was a columnist that Jim Cornette hated in the 90s and did like segments on Raw about, let me talk to you about Phil Mushnick and how much of a crap person he is and all this. So surprised Corny wasn't on it, actually. But yeah, that's the brief view of Overhead, the Talking Heads section. So we had the first episode titled Junior. So that was Vince's beginnings in the biz, all up to the first Mania.
To be fair, like
what?
Phil, I thought it was fascinating, like to an extent, because like, look, a lot covered just the controversies of what most wrestling fans know. I thought it was absolutely fascinating the fact that like Vince directly addressed them, because there's a certain couple things to which you'd swear he'd never fucking bring it to the public light again. And he was like, well, this happened. What can you do? Netflix money was paying something.
Yeah.
But to learn so much to an extent about Vince with regards to his favorite heel we were talking about, or his abusive stepfather, or the fact that his mother used to toddler his Dodger. There was a couple of things to which, I didn't know beforehand, and I feel more educated coming out of it going, you know what? That's why he's batshit insane. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we got a decent look at Vince. Even though I don't believe most of the things he said, we got a decent look of how he wants people to perceive him to a certain extent. Like he kicks off the documentary by saying, "Oh, I wish I could tell you the real stories. Oh shit, brother, that'd be good." And then the interviewer is like, "Well, why can't you?" And he was like, "Oh, I'll tell you enough to make it interesting." You know, like he's basically painted at the start as like an unreliable narrator, right? So we had 100 hours of interviews filmed from in around 2021 on. Some people up as far as 2024, other people, Vince, not up until 2024. But so I have a few notes down. They reference Vince as the P.T. Barnum of wrestling, which is way more apt than people even give it credit for. That's
Oh
brilliant.
yeah,
It's
if you
so
know
true.
anything about how P.T. Barnum ran the circus, oh god, just
Dude, honestly.
not
Brett
nearly
was
just
on
as
the
evil.
sorry, go on.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, ridiculous. So Brett showed up, and my first note was, I wonder will Brett work a shoot on Bill Goldberg into this? He didn't. I was surprised. A lot of restraint from the Canadian. Um, so we obviously have the abuse from Vince's stepfather and the alleged sexual abuse from his mother when up until the age of 12, which is when the first time he met his father. We had Vince Senior, he was originally going to sell the business, I think, to Gorilla Monsoon until Vince
yeah.
brought up the idea of buying it off him in like different increments of pay towards them, which he obviously did. We had obviously the discussion and breakdown between Hogan and Vince Senior's reputation because he went to do Rocky 3 and Vince Senior was like, "No, you can't. You're fired." And then he obviously got brought back because he's Hogan. Um, we had a little bit about the real life Iranian USA history and how that affected Sheik coming up and being the foreign heel and kind of not the archetype, but you know, like he was one of the big foreign heels, him and Kolov and things like that. They mentioned. It was really interesting the way McMahon put it. He said that the USA and Iran, as we would say in the business, had heat. So he
Yeah,
explained a whole like geopolitical war about like having heat. So
See these villages
that was
bombed.
interesting.
That's hate, brother.
Yeah, it's crazy. One thing I'd like to mention as well, just about the first episode, it's interesting seeing Vince as a person who had his finger on the pulse at one point and was ahead of the curve. The whole like closed syndicate WrestleMania 1 production was
Mm.
insane. Like the introduction of rock and wrestling was cool. Looking at Cyndi Lauper and Lou Albano in that video, that crossover, Mr. T's crossover, obviously, which built up with Mania. Um, so we do get a quick mention of the John Stossel incident and Dr. David Schultz, who slapped the shit out of
Does this feel
him. So we
real
got
to
that.
you?
Yeah, exactly. Because Vince said, "God, I really wish someone would take care of that reporter." You know, and then he left the locker room. Attested to by Tony Atlas. So Tony Atlas then went on to say when he was asked how did Vince react to that whole incident, he was like, "We celebrated. He bought us drinks." So again, Tony Atlas being brilliant. And then at the end, it was the legal fallout post Mania. So the Stossel and Belzer lawsuits that were settled respectively in 87 and 90. And that was Junior. That was the first episode. So, guys,
Yes.
any thoughts on Ep1?
Yeah, I think just as an aside to how
Yeah.
the public view of this shifted, like for a long time, people were unsure this project was even going to come out, especially after it was announced Raw would move to Netflix in America and all
Yeah.
programming would move to Netflix internationally. But
Mm.
then everyone was shocked when it came out, but everyone was sort of just questioning how accurate this was going to be and how much they would leave
Yeah.
out because of that new business partnership. And then a few days ago, in the one of the rare instances of him using social media, Vince and what I assume is law firm wrote for him tweeted out that
Oh, yeah.
we
Do,
do
do you
not
have the
accept the slander.
do you have the tweet? Because I can bring it up if you want. I got it
Yeah,
in here
just bring
somewhere.
it up. But I think that
Oh,
sort of
sure. Yeah.
shifted the general opinion of, oh, this is probably not going to be any good, to, okay, we have to watch this now.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really
All it's
interesting thing.
gonna do,
So
it's the Barbra Streisand effect.
yeah. So this is the thing that Vince put out. This was after news came out as well that Vince wanted to buy the documentary after seeing early cuts of it because of how bad he looked. Then he made himself look. So Vince put out on X, I think it was. I don't regret participating in the Netflix documentary. The producers had an opportunity to tell an objective story about my life and the incredible business I built, which were equally filled with excitement, drama, fun, and fair amount of controversy and life lessons. Unfortunately, based on the early partial cut I've seen, this doc falls short and takes the predictable path of conflating the Mr. McMahon character with my true self, Vince. This the title and is that promos? Sorry, title and promos make that evident. So that was the first bit of it. First of all, everyone bar Vince in the documentary, when asked the differences between McMahon as a character and McMahon as a person, said there was none, and the stories kind of back that up.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, Sean, any thoughts on Ep 1 before we dive into the second?
Here's the thing, right? Just to like counter that point, right?
Yeah,
With because I'm going to play devil's advocate for most of this.
fair.
Even look, I'll clarify this at the very start. Vince McMahon is a horrible person. He should not be respected in any way, shape, or form. If you believe in separating the artist from the person and the art form to the person itself, good on you. Maybe that's your only argument you can. I hope you enjoy your Kevin Spacey films all the same. But Vince McMahon is a horrible person, right? A horrible
Agreed.
human being. And
Mm.
he's portrayed himself like such publicly for 3 decades now,
Yeah.
right? The fact that the public is coming to him now and saying you're a horrible person, he shouldn't really be fucking tucking his tail between his legs, shoving it up his arse and go, "Oh, don't hate me," because if you fucking do, you're a psychopath. Now, with that, I'm going to play the voice of
The chairman of the board.
well, I'm going to fuck Vince. I'm not going to play that. I'm going to play the voice of nobody. I'm just going
Okay.
to put random thoughts into the fucking room, have you address them,
Yeah,
and
the voice of the voiceless, if you will.
Oh
yeah,
God.
I'm hungover. I'm not great with the analogies today. I'm drinking. I'm sure they'll become more creative as I get along. But with that, Vince has no right to complain about a lot of things. The more that I think about it, like watching the first episode of the documentary, I realized there was the whole okay, Vince is doing a lot of things that his father never would, you know, and there's loads of examples of that. Never mind taking over the territories. I feel like that gets highlighted a lot, but there's
Mm.
so many things to which Vince did that his dad never would, right?
Yeah.
And the fun thing about it is eventually Vince got to this whole point in your statement where he, fell off, lost touch, etc. And it got to a point where the one thing Vince's dad did do was realize, okay, I'm getting out of the business. I don't think I have it in me. I'm selling it to someone. I'm going to sell it to my son.
Yeah.
Vince did the exact fucking opposite.
Yeah, and I think we'll come on to that in a later episode that's kind of highlighted by Heyman. I think it's episode 5. It's family
Yeah,
business. Yeah,
yeah. No, I know that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think Vince almost, as much as he claims he loved his father and all that,
yeah,
I genuinely feel like he ran the entire organization for 40 years simply on what would my father do? I'm doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's really easy to get caught up in armchair psych
Psychology.
psychologically breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah, armchair psychology, like, but I think it's easy to do that, but yeah, no, you're dead on. I think a lot of it was like hidden resentment towards Vince's dad and things like that. But in the essence of trying to get through this speedily, we'll move on to episode 2, and I'll be a bit more concise in episode 2, and we can bring up points.
Yeah.
So episode 2, called Heat, mainly focusing on scandals brought up, such as steroids trial, sexual harassment allegations, and I think the Ring Boy scandal is mentioned in this, which I actually wasn't fully aware of at all.
Yeah, I never heard anything about this.
It
Yeah,
makes
so let's.
everyone involved look awful.
Oh, look terrible. Like, completely terrible. Again, the theme of this documentary is most people look terrible, and Tony Atlas is brilliant. So with that in mind,
him in a minute.
We'll get
Tony
to Tony.
Atlas is the victim that can laugh about everything that's fucking happened,
But
essentially.
he's just a straight shooter because he's no allegiance. So it's really interesting having him, because I thought when he popped up at first, I was like, Tony Atlas, why? And then I was like, oh, that's why, because he's like that voice who can contradict people because he's not getting paid by anyone. So, you know, it was interesting there.
In the instance to which, like, they're talking about, not to like skip over your fucking highlights for a moment,
No,
like,
go on, yeah.
even in the instance to which we're talking about, like the Ring Boy scandal, the 3 people that got fired, and Vince calling up and going, one of those people, was it Meltzer, if I remember correctly? Fucking, he was like, one of those people are innocent.
Yeah, it was Meltzer.
And it was Patterson that he claims was innocent. And then it goes to Tony Atlas, and he goes, Patterson touched my pepper. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? And it's like, Patterson touched my pepper. It happened, you know? And in that instance, I realized, because like in the previous episode, I think it was, he was like, we treated women horribly. We treated them like objects. Fucking like, I couldn't tell you the story.
He gets into it in this a bit more. So when he talks about touching his pecker, the interviewer is taken aback and asks him to repeat it. So he repeats it, and then the interviewer goes, would you not report this to anyone? And Tony Atlas laughed at him and then said, to whom would I report this? And the interviewer was like, Vince. And he was like, Patterson. Yeah, he was like, Patterson's Vince's boy. He's the booker. You know what I wanted to do? Complain and then get fired? No. So, like, again, Atlas, a kind of shining light of just like the clarity of what went on back then, specifically around the Ring Boy scandal and things like that. So yeah, we kicked off with kind of a small mentioning of the attempt at the union by Jesse Ventura, ratted out by Hogan, and it proceeded through the talking heads of everyone saying, yeah, Hogan ratted him out. Yeah, Hogan did it. And it cuts to Hogan and he goes, yeah, I had to say, hey, Vince, brother, something's going wrong with Ventura. He's stirring shit up. And it's like, all right, okay, David.
A lot of people come out of this looking absolutely awful, but aside from Vince himself, the person who comes out looking just like the biggest asshole in the world is Hulk, like by far.
Wow, shocker.
But now the general public, who may not be aware of all of his many, many lies, are now privy to just how much of a whining little bitch he is.
Oh my god, yeah. So with that in mind of showing people up, we have a brief mention of the 3 CDs mania, which was terrible. Trying to recapture lightning in the bottle didn't work. We'll skip over that. Then we had Mania 3, so a return to form for the grand stage, because it was Hogan and Andre for the first time ever, brother. He's gonna slam him, you know, and he was obviously slammed like 25 times before, as Dave put it.
7 of those times. Some of them going back to like 1970.
Yeah, of course.
It is almost refreshing though, like, because, like, you know, because, like, look, in the in the documentary, they talk a lot about Vince going, he never sells, right? He never gives a reaction. He never mentions anything. He won't give it the fucking time of day, right? But in my opinion, it's so interesting to watch him go and be like, yeah, we wrote our own history. Fucking, what you gonna do about it? It's promoting, you know? Fucking, sure, they've faced off multiple times before. Sure, Andre's been slammed many a times before.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? It's our business. Like, fucking, he took the assumption of, maybe they haven't seen, you know, these people in the territories, because it was very much a state-by-state thing. And just went, on a national level, this is the first time ever, so we're going to write it like that. And it's very smart in that instance, but it's something that you could not get away with nowadays. It's great business, don't get me wrong, but you can come up Apologies, my breakfast roll has arrived.
Okay. But yeah, anyways, moving on again, because this isn't really about the Madias. I just thought it was a fun little thing. Obviously, there's then that introduction of everyone saying 93,000, 90,000, 90,000 Meltzer. It was actually 78,000, which again is a great sellout, but it's again
Can
wrestling
I
business.
just point out how that clip was received on Twitter?
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's right in the little history. Who cares? And it's just like,
Yeah.
well, you see, we went to a show last year called
Yeah,
All In, and
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there was a big public fucking outroar about how many people were actually in the stadium. So it
yeah, even though
seems
they
very
sold the tickets.
yeah, even though
Yeah, it was the turnstile count.
yeah, so
Um,
it seems very just odd to me that these people would just focus on how much a non WWE show actually had in terms of attendance and not the terms of
yeah,
attendance they have for a WWE show. I just found that very interesting. Sean?
Yeah, you
yeah.
want to get Vegas,
Again,
right?
Yes.
sorry, go on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So obviously I'm just gonna skip over the rest. There's obviously you mentioned in Boom and Merchandising, the movie McMahon and Hogan wrote to keep him out of Hollywood. You have Mania 6 and the decline of Hogan, entering of the Warrior. This is there was a lot of heat, as we call it, with the Rack and USA line from Vince. There's all the slaughter stuff, and then Desert Storm arising to kind of tell them to maybe quell the idea of, geopolitical kind of tensions and stuff like that. So then the next big thing was in 1991 with the steroids trial with Dr. Zahorian. And we had the Phil Mushnick investigations. So Phil was a columnist who was one of the few people who reported on
He's a
wrestling because
communist.
columnist, not
Oh,
a communist. Oh, but anyways, he was the one guy to kind of critique wrestling because a lot of reporters like, oh, that's fake. It's wrestling. We're not gonna waste your time with that. But he was like, no, this is messed up. So he started writing about stuff such as there was a mention of Jimmy Snuka's alleged murder.
He was
That
charged for it. He just couldn't stand trial because he
yeah,
died
yeah,
whilst there.
exactly, exactly. So there was that. There was the ring boy sexual abuse scandal. So it was Mel Phillips, who was the ring boss, was the man who abused them, along with Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson. Vince did say to Meltzer that Pat was innocent, and obviously Pat was rehired. But then we have the Tony Atlas segment talking about how Pat used to inappropriately touch Tony, and he couldn't report it for fear of being fired, that we mentioned earlier. Then we have more scandals coming out. So we have the Phil Donahue show, different interviews with Vince where he kind of lost it, he kind of, he tried to work him, brother, but it didn't work. He worked himself into a shoot, technically.
Was Meltzer
Go on,
on?
David.
Meltzer was on one of those Phil Donahue shows, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
'cause
haven't gone back like fully, but yeah, I think he definitely was on at least one of them. I think he was sitting beside Vince, and
Yeah.
and Vince said to him, "This is the longest hour of my life," and he was like livid about it, right? So we had that, and then we had the Rita scandal. So the first female referee alleging forcing of oral sexual abuse, and then more along those lines against Vince. Then Vince had one of the craziest lines in the whole doc where he said, if it had been a rape, the statute of limitations would have ran out. So I don't know why people keep trying to dig things up, which is the most like confession, non-confession thing ever to say
Would
about
you
anything in regard
incriminate
like that.
yourself like that?
Yeah. Like no one guilty would say that, or no one innocent would say that. So we had that. We had Mushnick saying that he was an FBI informant because he was the one writing about the stuff in wrestling, and then the federal government got involved. Then we had a quick spin just to the rise of WCW, Hogan joining Turner. Hogan being forced to testify against Vince in the steroid trials as well was mentioned, where he obviously then went back against the government and basically said Vince never bought him or forced anyone to take steroids. He just kind of said, hey, you could train a bit harder, which was essentially his kind of wording of, go get a needle, whatever. And then we had a mentioning of the sum that was paid to Rita Chatterman last year. So 2023, when the statute of limitations was lifted on sexual assault crimes in the New York State area. So that was episode 2. Anyone, any fun thoughts about
Just-
that drama.
This is a general
I finished
sort
my
of.
breakfast roll. I'm going first. I finished my breakfast roll. I'm going first.
Okay.
Because I'll forget. I'll forget about it otherwise. Of all the horrible things that Vince McMahon has done, and he's done, more than the average person, more than me, with saying something. He's even admitted to, a crime essentially in this episode of the doc.
Pretty much it.
Every single wrestler to which was wrestling back then that they could to was like, Vince never told me to do it. It was never encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
He used certain language, sure, to work out more and shit like that.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I'll take away from it is I was doing steroids long before I met Vince McMahon. And in that instance, I realized a lot of the early stages of the WWF was if you have scandals, if you have all these things that are happening, like steroid trial, etc., it's not purely Vince's fault. And that's the only time to which I'll say Vince isn't the bad guy in this situation. He was just the head of a company to which collected all these guys, made much bigger than what it was, and it was headlining, but it had existing problems. And he was just a guy that was in charge of that now.
He adopted a fostered culture of steroid use.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, with that, I don't think he did anything wrong with that. He just took something that was existing and was like, oh, I'm going to make it bigger. And fucking, when he did, all these problems were put in the limelight. And, for the most part, for at least what the wrestlers claim, including Bret Hart, and he's a sour puss.
Hey, you leave Bret alone.
Fuck him. Goldberg retired him at the right time.
Leave him alone, eh?
But, for the most part, I get it. Like, I don't blame Vince necessarily on that one. He was just a guy fucking who was like, I have a vision. I have a dream, to which, the sun will shine over the hills. And he went, I'm going to put a wrestling ring there and, have everyone entertained. And unfortunately, they were just all on steroids. It happens. Like, you don't know what people in your life are on drugs. Just because all the chefs in your kitchen in a hotel are fucking smoking marijuana.
So the big takeaway from what Sean's trying to get into there is solely on the steroid abuse scandal wasn't entirely Vince's fault. Everything else in there, a lot on his door. David, any thoughts on Ep2 before we move on?
Yeah, there is a sort of general perception. Just I noticed just coming off of, because obviously a lot of the people there are either involved through Legends deals, or in the case of Bruce Pritchard, still with the company, that
Brucey boy.
They're obviously trying to shift as much blame onto Vince as possible in some areas, but in some cases like this, just not, because that reflects awfully on them and people would ask questions.
Yeah, I think the whole point from Netflix's side of the doc after they agreed the deal with WWE and they knew they were putting it out was a divorce of Vince from the company and a shifting of the blame onto Vince, so they could be like, everything that happened before then was that guy there and he's not around anymore, so tune in to Raw on Netflix, basically. Was what they were trying to do, which again is fair from their point,
Personally, I hope they bring the steroids back.
And on that note, episode 3 of the Vince McMahon documentary.
Wait. Before we go into episode 3, I have a question to ask you, boys. I'm going to ask you this live on the podcast. Well,
Shoot,
it's not live on the podcast because Kerwin will edit it out, I suppose. Do you think Vince McMahon sexually assaulted Rhea Murray?
Definitely.
Yes.
Because he said that the statute of limitations would have run out, so why would you dig up? So,
why are you smiling at that question, Jeff?
What?
Why are you smiling at that question?
Because it's ridiculous to think he didn't. The idea that he didn't do it is crazy to me.
Considering just
but yeah,
if it was just one thing, Yeah, you still
Hmm.
assume he would do it, but it'll come out. But given everything, especially in the last few years, that has come out about him, it's
Oh yeah,
I I don't know how
I'm
you could look at that behavior, read that story, and be like, oh, he didn't do that one though. Like, no, of course he did.
yeah.
I'm gonna make a counterpoint, but it's something that comes up in one of the later episodes. So we'll go on to
We can,
episode.
yeah. We'll,
Okay,
We'll
we'll,
go
we'll
to
get there.
we
We'll
need to
get
keep
there.
this one
So
for a lot
episode
of
3.
episode 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to speed along. So we have Screwjob, which is episode 3, which I assumed would kick off with the Montreal one, but it didn't. It kicked off with the Wendy Richter and Spider Screwjob, which I actually wasn't that fully aware of. So
Really?
is it? No, I
Yeah.
knew it happened, but I'd never seen footage or
One
whatever.
second. 1 second.
Two.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So we had the new generation era kick off
Yes.
post the trials because steroids bad. So then you had Bret Hart coming in. Bret Hart being Bret Hart, putting himself over. Says it was an art form. He was an artist. Bret's great. All that kind of stuff. Everything you expect from Bret on a documentary, basically. Bar
He's not
again
as good as
shooting on
Punk though.
Goldberg. What?
He's not as good as Punk though.
Yeah, sure. So we had defections to WCW beginning and the Monday Night Wars. You had Nitro come in. You had Bischoff taking over Nitro and stuff like that. You had the MSG Click curtain call brought up. So obviously Hall and Nash went over to WCW to work for Turner. You had Michaels was champion at that time, so Triple H got punished, didn't win King of the Ring that year. Austin won King of the Ring that year, and Austin 316 was born. So there was a look at that. Then we had the backstage clips of Taker, who just looked absolutely disgusted that Triple H and Goldust were playing like Street Fighter. He just he saw it and then he went. It's like I could feel his hatred.
So like
you know?
there's obviously he talks about an interview I think in his own podcast years ago about how I'm so sick of all these kids playing video games in the locker room. In my day,
Nerds.
they would have got knives and guns, which
Yeah,
even
and
just
done
like,
drugs on them.
yeah, which is just like even today is just like yeah, well, people in that generation also died at the age of 40, so.
Yeah, very true.
But
A
like
lot of
now,
tragedy
it's
there.
just it's funny to see that his vendetta against video games has always existed. Is it just because
yeah,
no one wanted him to play with them? Is that
Yeah, exactly. I think Taker was just sad because he was like the goth boy left out in the corner, and they laughed at him. That's what it was.
him and his
So
Bone
Taker,
Street
big
crew?
big insecurities from Taker and the goth kids from South Park. But anyways, we had I will go against Netflix. This is the biggest, most egregious thing in the whole documentary. They showed the clip of Nash and Hall showing up on Nitro. They cut out the look at the adjective play bit, and I am so pissed off. Like,
Oh,
it's not even funny.
you
They
thought that
cut
would
it
age
out.
well from last week, did you?
What?
You thought that would age well from last week, did you?
But like they cut out that bit. They showed up this like, oh, this is where the big boys play, and then they cut it out. So fuck that. But then we had Vince saying that he wanted to compete and not hurt his competitors, which is ridiculous, because he
That is
didn't
bullshit.
like any.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pure like. Anytime a company does that to Vince, he's the victim little millionaire. But when it's him doing it against anyone else, it's okay. It's a fair game. All's fair in love and war. So then we had Bash at the Beach and Hollywood Hogan coming in as the third man, brother, which was fun to look back on. Then we had the cut of Bischoff saying 83 weeks like 10 times. This was podcasting because they were on top for 83 weeks,
It would be just like us saying that we're fairly restless about 10 times in the next hour.
Yeah, exactly. I never knew Bischoff had that tryout for the Fed pre WCW though, as like a kind of
that was
on-screen.
really
I've seen
interesting.
that. I've seen that. It's
Oh, that
fairly
was
rare.
I hadn't seen it.
But
Yeah.
Darwin, fucking, you've seen everything at this point.
True.
Why
True.
do you
Yeah.
think I started this podcast?
So then we had Vince saying, "I don't think I regret anything in my life." Choice of words. That's a sentence he said.
And now
Then
he's saying the quiet part out loud.
yeah, exactly. Then we had the Montreal Screw Job, which Brett had another star-making moment. I got him.
He goes,
Bullseye. When he spit him in the face. It's a great spit too. He hocked that loogie, brother. He hocked it right in him. And then you had Vince who was talking about when Brett decked him. He was like, "Yeah, that was a pretty good concussion." Yeah. He rated it. And then we had the Mr. McMahon character coming on. So any quick notes? Again, trying to keep this brief. So any quick notes on it before we move on? Or?
Just if there's anything that any of these incidents proves, that he is a very spiteful man.
Oh. God, yeah, like pure aggression in a human, right? Like the amount of times he talked about visualizing choking someone in an interview is crazy. Like he said that at least 3 times over the 6th episode. He's like, I could just visualize choking him, you know? Yeah.
Maybe he had a kink. Maybe he had a kink.
Maybe. Well, I think he did. We'll get on to that in the next episode, I think.
Yeah.
I think it raises an important question. Now, this is sidetracking a little bit. Do we think?
Be quick.
Do we think Vince McMahon is straight?
No.
No. All right. Moving on. Vince is not straight. Confirmed. So moving on to episode 4. This is the fun bit for everyone who's a lapsed fan. We had the Attitude Era. So we had the discussion of the rise of the Attitude Era, and then we end with the tragic passing of Owen Hart, which made me cry again because I'm a little emotional boy, and it's terrible. But,
I don't want.
See? Right. So we start with we start with one of Maroney's favorite parts of the documentary. Actually, we got an introduction to Dr. Jerry Graham, who was Vince's favorite growing up, a heel who was like bleach blonde, and apparently Vince dyed his hair blonde, which I need to see. I need to see like just completely peroxide blonde Vince. And interestingly enough, like he did take a lot from it. Like the strut that Jerry Graham does is very similar to the McMahon walk with the fucking hands and stuff like that. So we had that. What else do we have here? So we have the narration that Vince resigned due to allegations, and interviews were conducted before that. Again, so it's a reiteration of that. I think they had a little block at the start of on episode 1 as well. Just that the interviews were conducted before these allegations.
I swear they've had it for the majority of the episodes.
Yeah. It's just I think I just noticed it, so I just popped it in. So the Attitude Era was born. Enter ECW. So we got clips of Heyman. Heyman loves that. Big fan, Heyman. He loves it. So we had.
I'm sure he doesn't look in the dock now, I'm honest with you.
Maybe not. So we had. I thought the dissection between the Mr. McMahon and Vince McMahon personas is hilarious because, again, as we said earlier, everyone states that the character and the person is the same in many ways. Vince says it isn't, but then reneges on that at the end because he kind of talks about how it's a blend. He thinks one's more exaggerated. He doesn't know which one. It's kind of what we leave on at the end of the episode.
Lying.
Yeah, pure lies. Pure lies.
I think this is like the first episode like throughout the doc to which like I think if you're gonna ask anyone the perspective throughout anything with regards to Vince McMahon, the business, how it came up, all that, etc.
Yep.
The most interesting, in my opinion, and the most honest is probably Shane's.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would kill for a doc on just Shane's family relationships. I think it'd be great because the poor guy, I feel, got so thrown around. We'll get into it in the next episode. One of my favorite bits of it is the Heyman story. We'll get into that in family business.
I would like to just add this. I'll probably add the tweet itself when I get to around.
Cut it in,
this. There was the Young Bucks put out a tweet this week.
Of course they did.
Them in an airport, and who else should be standing in between them but Shane McMahon?
Big Shane, sweaty McMahon-o-Mac. Ooh, baby. He's going to do a coast to coast from the top of the cage.
I think the light in Sean's eyes died a bit when I said that.
Yeah, so I can't wait for that.
You can't do a coast to coast off cables, man. Fucking, you have to do it off ropes.
Oh yeah,
Shane could do it. He's sweaty enough. He'd slip through. But anyways,
there's bombs.
All right, episode 4.
So hold on. There's just a little bit just about Owen. So Again, we have the clip of McMahon saying that it's still family friendly. There's no use of murder, rape, guns, or knives in this at all in
This
the
is the
business.
first
And then
bit
it
of the
cuts
documentary
to
I saw.
yeah, it's my favorite bit. So when he says murders, it cuts to the buried alive matches. When it says rapes, it cuts to the Vince
Yeah,
thing.
rapist.
You know,
Which
we have yeah, come on.
which just in hindsight, him saying "Come on out, you rapist," just
Yeah,
oh
No,
one
boy.
of the
if,
most reused clips in Twitter. I think it's just so good. Go on, yeah.
if Netflix wanted to use a proper clip for that moment as opposed to "Come out, you rapist," they should have like painted Vince in a much more worse light. In the instance, do you remember the promo to which Vince cut on Taker where he said he wanted to rape her wife?
No, I don't know that.
Have you
Oh
never seen that promo?
God, we can watch
No.
it. We can watch it after. I think
Literally, like he's
that's
like,
I
ah,
think
what rape?
that's enough mention of
Moving
SA. I think
swiftly
for
along.
this.
But
Yeah.
that would have been a
So
more suitable clip.
It
okay,
would,
I
but
understand.
also,
I'm with
please
you.
stop trying to cancel the
Let's
show.
leave.
Yeah.
Leave that the allegations there. So then we had, and obviously knives and guns. Pillman's got a gun. All that sort of stuff, you know, is spliced in there. Then we had Vince trying to mention that the women were the highest draws. They were the biggest thing on the TV show, but he demeaned the hell out of them like it was horrible. Which again, we'll get to in future. I think this is the episode where we had Trish and all fours. It was either this.
Sable.
No, it was the next episode. Sorry. Um.
Oh,
So then we had
I
this
wish.
horrible thing with Owen. So we had this is a mention of the hypothesis that we would do something against Owen because Brett left only speaks to Brett's ego. Really, Brett, why would we do that? We don't care about you. You left. We're trying to make Owen a star. And that's a quote from Vince. And then it was interspliced with clips of the Blue Tornado and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously we got the harrowing clips of Owen, the discussion of him passing, and we had Vince justifying going on with the show because if he had splatted on the mat, he would have wanted them to get him out of there and keep going. We have clips of Jeff Jarrett who poor bloody Jarrett. He really good friends with Owen, obviously highlighted in the Owen Hart Cup tournament recently in AEW. He had that great promo. And here it's like him starting off the promo by saying, Owen, we're praying for you, brother. And then he tries to do this whole, you've been stealing my woman thing. And it's just you can tell like his heart is not in it at all. Obviously, Owen was wheeled past all the boys in the back. And then they were thrown out of the curtain, told it was their time to get on and just go and perform, basically.
Just
Yeah.
I haven't been able to clarify if this was mentioned, considering I just had to
Mhm.
watch a whole bunch of things. But like,
Yeah.
you go listen to him, you go listen to say D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry, who are also friends with
Yeah.
Owen.
Yeah, because the nations.
His blood was there in the ring.
Yeah.
You could see it
Staying in the
on the
mat.
video. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
and just the worst person I feel for in that case would be JR, because he doesn't know what's happening.
Oh
And there's that
God,
story
yeah, and then
he
he
always
obviously had to
tells.
announce it.
Yeah, where they're just like, we had the update, and it's like he didn't know what happened, so he's like, you have to say it. And 10 seconds before that little Kevin Dunn, the little beaver toothed bastard, just like 10 seconds like, but what's the update? We don't know. He's dead. You have to say that. He's dead.
Right.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I
And
don't know how you even process that and go ahead with it.
yeah, and obviously, obviously the live crowd, the live house didn't know. They didn't announce it. But yeah, Sean, any thoughts on episode 4? Just before we crack into family business.
Yeah, no, because I think we've skipped over something
Yeah.
quite a bit here, right?
Sure.
As much as Owen Hart died, no, he's dead. Stop talking about it. I think we've skipped over the very important, integral part of the story, which is Sable, right?
That's in the next episode. We get
No,
the
but they
Sable and
mentioned
Trish in
it
the next
here.
episode.
They
Did they?
mentioned
Oh,
it
okay.
in They did. They did mention it
Oh.
in this episode.
Oh, okay,
They mentioned in the next episode the lawsuit and then her coming back to the company.
yeah.
But they mentioned how essentially widely popular she was, how much of a draw she was, and essentially, in my opinion, now I know we can talk about it a little bit in the next episode. this episode sets up essentially the narrative to which Sable is going to speak upon in the next episode that Vince is going to rightfully deny. Or not rightfully, but fucking
I was
predictably,
wondering about the choice of words there. Yeah, go on.
predictably deny. I thought it was very interesting to some extent because I noticed that throughout the doc, because there'd be certain instances and moments to which you haven't arrived at a topic yet. There's already wrestlers hinting at it,
Yeah.
talking against how Vince perceives it, to say the least. And maybe to an extent legally, he has to deny all such allegations, etc. That worked for such amount of time.
Yeah.
But that was something I noticed very much between episode 4 and episode 5, that they're setting up Vince essentially with these narratives, and then in the next episode he's lying about his narrative in these instances.
Yeah, he's given his perception or what he wants to be perceived as. Again,
Yeah.
Vince playing the promoter and the wrestler, the
Yeah.
whole put out a persona and
Yeah.
yeah.
The dementia riddled victim he is.
Yeah. David, any thoughts before we move on?
No, I think we're about ready to move on because there is a lot of discussion in episode 5 that we should probably get through because it will take a while.
This might be my favorite episode, I think. If for nothing else, the Heyman story is crazy. So we have yeah. So we have episode 5, Family Business. So this is a deep dive into the McMahon's business and familial relationships. So we cover things like introduction of Steph and Shane and their uprise, Linda coming in, story with Trish, the Sable stuff, and all those associated things, and kind of the business and the on-screen stuff as well as the off-screen relationships and how they're affected. So starting off with mentioning of Vince McMahon's abuse. They had obviously mentioned the abuse up until he was 12 by his stepfather. They hadn't hinted at up until this point. They flashed on the Playboy interview that he did where he alluded to sexual abuse coming from his mother, which is really weird when you see that Vince's mother is like around,
really hot,
like really old and around,
really
and like
hot.
She was 101.
Jesus Christ! The good die young, and Vince McMahon's gonna be here for a few years. So we had God above. So we had this is a crazy quote from. Sorry, David, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just like to point out, since you mentioned the Playboy interview, I don't know if it was that interview or an interview around that time where he talked about his first experimentation with sexuality. It was on his cousin, which first off, oh no.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I didn't even see that. Go on.
Yeah, and he put crushed leaves in a place where crushed leaves should not be. And he says, he says on that is, I remember finding that very fascinating.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, it actually kind of sets up the quote. So Vince has this quote. Sorry, go on, Sean. Shoot.
You know the whole storyline that comes up later in the episode about Vince impregnating.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. Yeah. It's on the notes. Yeah.
Do you think that spawned because of the years of incestual abuse that he claims from his mother?
I would think so, as an armchair psychologist. Yeah, I feel like all the sexual deviancy in his character are probably outlets for his brain to cope with what happened to him as a kid. Again, we have a few quotes.
Armchair psychologist, you're a fucking kitchen porter.
Yeah, but I'm in a chair and I'm psychologizing. I'm psychologizing Vince McMahon, all right, from a documentary.
You're a broken dishwasher at work.
Shut up, all right, and I'm a bloody good one. So we have this quote from Vince, which was not the first, but really harrowing. He's talking about his relationship with his father and mother figures as a kid, and he said, when you're a kid, there's fighting, there's infighting, and there's incest, and you don't like it. But I felt that as a kid, when you're getting the crap beaten out of you, once he stops, if you're still breathing, you're still alive, and you win. So Vince didn't want to victimize himself in that regard. which I think again the lack of being able to deal with that probably brought itself out in other bits, like the like the impregnation storyline, anything like that, right? So then we had a shout out to Test. So up Test, Marion Steph, fair play to you. Oh no, Hunter drugged her. And it's not a matter of if, but how many times they
He raped her.
consummated the marriage. Stop saying that word. Just
That's
use a
how it
different
would be.
term. Just
If
use a
Mr.
different
Brewski
term.
got married, it isn't a matter of if, it's how many times he fucking would have done that.
Yes. Okay.
It's just the
Hey,
fact that
wise.
even in the 90s that they thought that was a good idea to put on screen. It's
Oh, yeah.
terrible.
Well, the 90s has a lot of bad things, you know, Kerwin. They were a month away from Jeff, essentially.
All right. Fuck off. So moving on, you dick. All right. No, I'm hurt by that. All right. I would have been hated in the 90s because I'm a nice person. All right. I'm a good guy. So, anyways, we had a the Vince and Steph match was mentioned, which was Vince pushed for. It was a street fight, and it was it a week or 2 weeks before the wedding? 2? Like the shoot wedding of Hunter and Steph, because
It was
originally
2.
It was 6 days before the wedding.
6 days, right? Because originally Vince wanted to put the wedding on pay-per-view, and Steph was like, "Ha ha ha, no, like no, you're not doing that." So we did that instead. We had a mention of Shane and Vince at X7, which again we'll get into more in terms of how that relationship goes throughout this. We had then the mention of Stable's lawsuit towards McMahon and Titan Entertainment for sexual harassment. Excuse me. And then we had Vince being asked about the Sable lawsuit and the storyline when she came back. And he said, "I don't remember much about Sable in terms of a lawsuit. No, I don't. It's all a blur, but all I know is she came back to work." So basically saying it's fine because she came back to work, and then he put her in a storyline where he was having an affair with her, which is again messed up beyond belief. So Vince has no memory of the storyline at all. And then we had Heyman in the back, as Vince said, as the interviewer asked about the storyline, shouting "storyline," which isn't a good look. But Heyman shouts it from the back. And then we have Vince talking about his actual affairs. A quote from him that was put up on screen: "The sex was terrific, but from an emotional standpoint, I regret it." So that was,
You regret that you were caught.
Yeah, exactly. I'll hold my hands up because you've caught him red-handed.
Look, I'll tell you this. As a person who cheated on one of his partners in his life, I do regret I was never caught. The second was fantastic.
Jesus Christ.
It's one of those things where it's like, if I could get away with it, honestly, I'd highly debate doing it again. But
Maroney.
The emotion. Let me get to my point.
Okay, all right.
The emotional torment it had on me of being, I'm a bad person because I did that.
Yeah.
It reminded me that I should never. And since then, I've learned as a human being to not listen to those impulses or emotions. It's reminded me that, whilst the sex was phenomenal, like brilliant, like I still think about it to this day.
All right, get on with it.
To the point, please.
It reminds me we're all flawed humans, and regardless of if we get caught or not, you have to hold yourself to the mark.
Mm-hmm.
In Vince's instance, the fact that he goes on the air and he says so publicly, "Yeah, I had these affairs. I did this, I did that," and he's learned from it in the Playboy interview, whatever the fuck he said. Well, I can't remember the exact quote. Fair enough. The thing is, I genuinely believe that him and Linda had a open relationship almost to an extent, considering that she was egging him on in her own words, in storylines.
Okay. Yeah, I get that, but it's a storyline. I get we're getting carried away. I completely understand your points. Maybe don't try and conflate yourself with Vince McMahon going forward. Maybe that's not a good standpoint for you. Just from a personal.
He's
just
my
no.
hero.
Shut up. All right. Okay. I get what you're saying. I understand it.
He's
Let's
my
keep
hero.
let's keep going.
He inspires me.
Yeah, okay, to be
Okay,
a better
let's go.
person. Yes, of
Let's
course.
go.
So right. Then we had some quotes from
And to know when to be a bad person.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Enough,
Just please let me get through this
please.
bloody documentary. I had
No.
6 hours,
I've
okay?
been very severely hungover. You've asked me to get on a podcast. I'm drinking vodka so I don't feel my fucking thumping headache. You just can't give out to me.
All right, Jeff, please.
Right. So, then we had a couple of quotes from Heyman, which were really well put. Surprise, surprise, Heyman knows how to string a sentence together, right? So Heyman said Vince McMahon had only one truly monogamous relationship in his entire life, and that is with the business that he built. Vince doesn't own the business owns Vince McMahon, and he serves it. So that was really well put. It's the perfect explanation of Vince and the company. Then we have WWF going public. We have WCW with the Viagra on a pole match, which is great. I'd never seen that clip before. That was
I'm
fantastic.
surprised Vince didn't come up with something like that, you know?
Yeah, it feels very Vince,
Yeah,
doesn't
you
it?
see,
Yeah.
but like
It
on a
feels like
poll,
modern day.
yeah, on a poll and stuff, that is just 100% Vince Russo. That is his entire thing.
Oh yeah, Vince Russo, bro. He loves it. He loves it, bro. It's gonna sell, bro. You know, he's
Bro,
fucking.
Bro, let me
Anyway,
tell you, bro. Go on.
bro. So then we have the WCW buyout, the XFL beginning. You can skip over the XFL because we know how that went both times. We had Vince saying he visualized having his hands around Bob Costas's neck during the interview around the XFL is on brand. It's pretty what you'd expect.
I'm telling you, he has a kink.
Yeah, let me just
Yeah.
say, from my limited
Mhm.
experience of people who are fans of American football and just American media in general, Bob Costas is one of the
Yeah.
most beloved interviewers of all time.
Mm.
Which just really
I
just
can-
speaks
I
to the
can
kind of evil of
Yeah.
this.
I can see why though, because I'll be honest, just even from the little talking head bits, his voice is fantastic.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
got a great broadcasting voice. It's fantastic. So then we have the WWF name brand lawsuit. So with the
Wildlife Fund.
Yeah, the panda company. I couldn't think of the name, but yeah, WWF letters. So they get the F out, which great little bit of advertising. Just an aside, I don't think they brought it up, but the little clips are great. Like that little branding was good. We have sorry, go on.
Yeah, at the time that we were recording this, one of the inspirations for this podcast, at least from my area, is the Deadlock podcast. This was the latest thing that
Oh
we
yeah.
covered. Was,
Oh, I
F
must give that
out.
a look.
Yeah.
I must give that a look. I love
Shout
those
out to
boys.
my boys.
I'm
Fantastic.
surprised they didn't include any of like the imagery from that promotion, like get the F out fucking
Yeah.
in the pod.
It was weird. I thought they would have put it in the documentary because it's great. It's great advertising.
It's great.
I think the now actual WWF might have vetoed that, given Vince's
Oh, fair.
reputation.
Oh, very true. Very true. So then we have Icon versus Icon, Rock versus Hogan. Great match. But again, we're not here talking about
Should have been
matches,
the
but it was
main.
great. Yeah, it should have been the main. Then we had, I just mentioned, obviously McMahon talked about choking someone else out again. I just put down, I'm going to choke a lot of people I'm finding out from this. Weird. Then we had Brock leaving for Hollywood. Austin took his ball and went home. We had the beginning of the ruthless aggression era. So we've seen his debut, seen his growth from being nearly cut to Dr. Thugonomics. We had a mention of Katie Vick. They brought up the incest story then between Steph and Vince that she vetoed because why the fuck would you leave that in?
Like to just point
Probably not.
I would like to point
Uh-huh.
out real
It's
quick
entertaining.
that Sean, just one sec, that Vince is very good friends with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump
Battle of
has
the
said
Billionaires.
similar things about how his daughter was not his daughter, he would have dated her, which
Oh yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah, it's crazy. We'll get on to Battle of the Billionaires. It's like the first thing that comes up in the next episode. But yeah, Vince and Trump, lot of stuff in common. But then they had the mentioning of the UFC buyout option from Shane, and Shane talks about how it would have been a really good move, would have been fantastic. Cuts to Vince, and Vince says, "Well, it really wouldn't have been a good investment. No, 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 no. Yeah, they had to build that a lot." And it's like, dude, just give him credit for one thing, you know? Like, give
Which,
Shane something.
I mean, look, in hindsight, Shane was vindicated in the end. Now that they're together,
Yeah.
but now the UFC owns them.
Oh yeah, like that's it. Yeah, right. So then we have the most interesting part of this whole episode, and my probably favorite part of the documentary. So Heyman discusses a creative argument between Shane and Vince, where it devolved into Vince. So basically, there was an agreement, or there was a meeting over dinner, with Shane and Vince, and obviously Heyman was there too. And Shane was really pushing for this story. He really believed in it. He really wanted to put it on telly, and he was putting it to Vince. And Vince just blatantly said no. And then Vince went on and devolved into taking a knife from his dinner, ripping open his shirt, and saying, "If you really want this, you can plunge this knife into my chest. But think about it, because also, if you don't do it, I'll know that you're not man enough. So I'll have to take that into consideration. You'll have to try and get rid of me like I did with my father, and try and do the things that I could with my dad." Again, it's one of the most eye-opening things, because it's like I believe Heyman. I know he can sell sand to Arabs, he can sell the time to a clock, he can sell water to fish. I get it. Definitely believe this one, because it just sounds so on brand, but that was where we left
I would have stabbed
family
him.
business.
Like dead straight. Like if I was Shane McMahon in that instance, I'd be like, we can get him to the hospital. Fuck him.
He's not gonna die anyway.
Just get him
Yeah.
between the ribs.
For-
Yeah, just get him.
He
Yeah,
sacrificed
right?
12 virgins last week. He's gonna live forever. It's fine.
Yeah, but again, I think this is more just of a call out for, I want a Shane doc. I want a
I
Shane
want
doc. I want
a
one about
Shane McMahon
everything.
documentary. So interesting.
Really think it'd be great.
See, the thing is, Stephanie's smart enough to not say anything at this point anymore, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But
But Shane,
if we're gonna talk about Stephanie and this this
Yeah.
documentary, can we
Oh,
please
is this
talk
the
about her thing about Tyson?
I was gonna say, right, so I think it must be the Attitude Era one, I'm assuming. So they're talking about having Mike Tyson on brand. And I think it's in and around when all the allegations come out about, abuse and things like that. And Stephanie talks to the interviewer and goes, "That was before he was convicted for that thing though, right?"
And then
And they're like,
someone
"No."
walks
And
in.
she's like, "Oh shit." Basically. So that was
Yeah.
a wild clip from Steph.
Oh
And
my
obviously
God.
Steph mentioning in this episode as well.
can
She
I,
sorry, go on, Sean.
can I mention one thing that I
Mhm.
genuinely think is so strange? I think
Yep.
the whole narrative of Vince pitched Stephanie getting married to Paul in real
Yeah.
life or setting them up is so fucking odd because
Yeah.
they skipped over literally. I'm surprised it didn't make it in the doc. I suppose you can't really ask about it, but it would have been the perfect time to her alleged, uh, relationship with the Macho Man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's yeah.
Like,
Again, I
Oh,
think the decision to exclude that was probably Stephanie is with the company now,
mhm.
and Stephanie would be
But
one of
Stephanie's
the
not with the
not
company now.
no, but she is though, right? Like she is. She's a public face you associate with WWE a lot more than Vince. Like Vince is gone and gone. Stephanie is with the company. Like Stephanie introduced Night 2 of Mania, right? So she's a face that you associate with it. So again, Netflix probably want to keep away from active faces that are with the company being dragged into certain controversies as much as they can. But yeah, it would have been a good time to, like, I suppose, discuss that if you're ever going to discuss it.
Yeah,
Um,
I at least posed a question.
yeah.
Like,
David?
yeah, like I can understand why you want to leave certain things out, especially since, well, Steph is a public part of the company now. Obviously,
Yeah.
Randy's been dead for 10 years at this point.
And she would have been a child at the time.
Yes.
Also that, yeah. That's not great.
Yeah, look. Certain things they're not going to include. They did not include a lot of things, including the fact that Bruce Pritchard and WWE are both being sued. And the lawsuit that they mentioned in the final episode.
Of course,
which is the actual glaring omission that had a lot of people angry, but however, let's just finish this so we can get to everything else.
Yeah, exactly. We got a lot to talk about. So the big finish, final episode 6, starts off with the Battle of the Billionaires with Trump. Meltzer praising Donald Trump wasn't on my 2024 bingo card. I don't know about you. He praised him in terms of his contribution to the story and things like that. And obviously different columnists and reporters who were interviewed discussed it in a way where Trump, even in his political standpoint, he's a very wrestler-minded person in that. He would have been, if he had just stuck with the wrestling thing and been a personality, I think people would have loved him. But he ran for office and became president and probably will again. But yeah. So then we have the death of Vince McMahon. He did win, we know. Okay, we're not getting bogged down.
We're not history books.
Stop. We're not getting bogged down. All right.
He's a former U.S. president.
Yes, we agree.
WWE Hall of Famer.
Yes. Okay. Moving on from the former president, we had the death of Vince McMahon.
He's the second U.S. president to do that.
Okay, I know. So moving on, we had the death of Vince McMahon, which was quickly stinted by the death of Chris Benoit. So obviously the discussion of the double homicide-suicide with Chris and his wife and his kid. We had a discussion of CTE, which brought out a couple of different people's opinions, which I don't really agree with. So Vince stated that the head trauma that Chris suffered was a work. And so did Hogan. They said, that's just working, brother. It's no, it's not, right? It's not. Austin said that he doesn't believe in CTE. Which I don't know how to feel about that.
Famously known for giving people shots to the head with steel chairs.
Yeah.
It's very convenient.
And, he's had a concussion before. He just doesn't believe in CTE. We had Chris Nowinski.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, spinal stenosis. Is it spinal stenosis? I think that's what it was. Yeah. So we had, obviously, Chris Nowinski coming in because he was big in the promotion of CTE because he was in for a year, I think, professionally, and then had to get out because of head trauma and things like that. And he brought his studies to Vince. Vince, although denying things about CTE in this documentary, did cut out chair shots to the head, which it cut to Taker. Taker was upset about that at the start because most chair shots to the head were given or taken by Taker. So, it's a storytelling device. But
they're all too weak.
Yeah, literally, yeah. But there was some moves were banned. I think pile drivers were banned around that time, as well as the chair shots to the head. More again, head focused traumas. Tried to alleviate that with Chris Nowinski coming in and helping with that. And also, again, he had been fighting for NFL, NHL. To this day, they still argue with him about that. But it was nice to see him on the documentary. Nice to see him doing well and doing good work. Right?
Sean wants to say something.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
Go on.
Look, again, it's a horrible tragedy what happened between Chris Benoit and, but I'm not going to slate the wrestlers here because of their poor opinion, I suppose, that can be publicly perceived, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, it goes down to Vince's quote simply where he was like, they were trying to link it to steroids, they were trying to link it to head trauma, and in his opinion, it wasn't that. He just went nuts. And I think that firmly has to be the standpoint you have, because in the business, you have people who will get concussions, you'll have people who will dope. And for many, many years, a majority of people did, right?
Yeah.
And in Chris's case, he's the one that did that, right? You didn't have Hogan when they had the steroid scandal going on, murdering girlfriends. You didn't have anyone from the Attitude Era, to which, like Mick Foley, for example, fucking with that one match with The Rock, going murdering his wife. It's one of those things to which, like Austin said, he's like, I don't believe in it, but poor choice of words. But at the same time, as someone who was in that era, to which you're probably fresh off the steroid scandals, there's probably still a couple of people who still did it secretly because the drug policy in the WWF wasn't as
Yeah.
serious until the double murder suicide, and you had all that head trauma. It was an outlier, to say the least. It was the result of someone who either wasn't in a very good place mentally, was in a bad marriage, etc., etc. I'm not going to get into the details of that because obviously we don't know. But you kind of have to have a strict standpoint of, well, me and all my colleague buddies, did this for about a decade plus, and we feel fine. We didn't ever feel the need to do this. Fucking,
I Yeah, I get where you're going. Like I understand it from say Austin's point of view of protecting the business and protecting the boys because it wasn't a common thing. But I think you can take responsibility for it happening to certain people.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
certain traumas happen to certain people. It doesn't matter how many times certain things happen to you or whatever. It's an independent situation, right? It's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna.
think that goes back to what Austin said, though, with the whole look. If you're walking, like I did my whole career, I had one concussion. If it's a case where, like, week by week, match by match, you're having a bunch of concussions, you're doing it wrong. You know, honestly, and it cuts to those clips where he's just diving off the top of the cage with a headbutt, and in those instances, I'm just thinking, yeah, in this one particular wrestler who does a stupid move like that, who would do a diving headbutt?
Yeah.
Only bad wrestlers do diving butts.
Look.
Only
Yeah,
bad
I
wrestlers
think
do diving butts.
David,
Look,
yeah.
I will add to a point here. This case is what brought a lot. Is what fueled a lot of CT research since, a lot of brain trauma research since, because a lot of it was not
Yeah.
known beforehand. And like you mentioned, Sean, with the diving headbutt, like the three most famous users are Chris Benoit, Dynamite Kid, and its inventor Harley Race. Now,
Yeah.
Harley and before he died,
You're missing
Yes,
someone.
we know Brian does it.
we
Okay,
know Brian
moving
does it,
on.
bad
and I hate
wrestlers.
that he does it. Yeah.
Okay, David.
Yeah, but Harley, the creator of the move, said don't do it because it compresses your spine, and it led to him being in a wheelchair for most of his retirement. And
Mhm.
same thing, Dynamite Kid said, don't do it. But like, I understand your viewpoint as looking at it now that it was stupid, but people just simply did not know what this was until after it took this tragedy for it to happen. And
Yeah, and
Yeah.
now people know what it does.
yeah, people
Yeah,
can't.
no, we get that.
All right, let me finish.
Go on, David.
Let me finish. Like Sean said, and he's right, it is a number of different things. But some of these things
Yeah.
are encouraged by the lifestyle they lived, and even other people in the business said, maybe don't do that. Famously, Chris Jericho said during the Dark Side of the Ring, it's like he went to go after his best friend died. Yeah, someone he just was very clearly just loved dearly. He decided to go wrestle in Europe for the next month, which is like, don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
not just.
I think
It's not like just what he did. It's also the mindset around keep working, don't take time off, that sort of thing. And it's taken this tragedy for it to change. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
which is a good thing. Again, I think we could go back and forth about this for ages, but again,
we should.
in the
We need
interest
to.
of
We
moving
need to
along,
keep going.
we can discuss concussions another day, right? So we had the Armin Katarian interview with Vince McMahon, where he posed the questions about wrestlers dying young. Vince got livid about it. It's like, it's not my fault that they're doing this, that, and the other, blah blah blah. Again, case of Vince just cracking under pressure.
The
But I'd say
300 dates a
he's
year say otherwise.
Yeah, yeah,
like,
exactly.
but like, if you go back to territories, fucking, it was the exact same thing. Again, he's just the man who fucking made it a global
It's a
organization, and
bad
he's putting.
thing. It is a bad thing,
Yeah, but
regardless.
No, it is.
yeah,
Yes,
we're
but
not
it was the
attacking
exact
Vince.
same before him.
Yeah, but we know that. But he could have changed it, is all we're saying. He was the booker. He's the guy in charge. He could have changed it, and he didn't. We're not attacking him. We're not saying he invented it.
It's possible.
He what?
He was making as much money as possible.
Yeah, so he could have sacrificed a few $1 million for the safety of his employees who didn't have to
Right,
die before the age of
right.
40. All right,
And
I
you
think that's a
wrestled
fair
right. You get to
accusation.
live to a good age, like Shawn Michaels, Triple H,
They've also been
Yeah, some of
retired
them did.
for a lot
Hulk
of them.
Hogan.
Oh well, now he's
Yeah, okay,
borderline paralyzed at this point.
yeah. Again, we could get bogged down, give it
Yeah,
out about
Jeff,
the
Triple
just
H.
different.
just
Or sorry,
continue on.
Undertaker.
Yeah, so we had obviously introduction of wellness policy and concussion protocols, and switching up schedules to lighten the load. And obviously, to this day, they're lightening them again. I think they're going to about 200 to 150
Yes, because a lot of them aren't profitable, which
dates next
is
year. I think that's the
yeah,
plan.
which
Scale it back
a
again,
lot of
cutting
that
off some
is
house shows. Yeah,
sad that that's happening, but like
yes,
for
it is.
just
But
yeah, just for like it's a
you know,
sad that what it's taken is them to not be profitable anymore, for them to stop like not letting the talent have a day's rest.
yeah, yeah. But anyways,
Okay.
they are changing it, which is a good thing. So then we have Mania 30, the death of the streak. Again, concussions come back up because of Taker about 5 minutes in, dropped on his
Mm-hmm.
head. Vince again denies that he was getting concussion and states that he was just shocked at the fact he lost the streak because it was decided on the day, which is fucking ridiculous.
No,
Um,
you
yeah,
can very clearly see his head hit the mat.
I know. I know, but he denies it. And again, Vince went to the hospital with Taker because he got a concussion. But he said, "Oh, I think he was just rocked by the idea of him losing the streak." And it's like it's ridiculous, right?
Here's the
Um,
thing, right? Like, look, just one thing, right? Very
okay,
quickly.
quickly, yeah,
Because me and Jeff watched Mania 30 recently. When I say
yeah,
recently, it was like 2 months ago at this point. Um, but we watched this entire match, and literally the entire match, we were going, right, when does it happen? Like, we were watching it very closely, going,
yeah.
oh, I think this might be the moment he gets rocked. And then, like, he starts fighting again or performing again. Like, okay, maybe it wasn't that moment. And then we had like I think about a solid 4 or 5 moments throughout the match. We were like, oh, that's where he definitely got rocked. Oh no, he's still giving it. Fucking what happened here. And if he got rocked 10 minutes into the 25-minute match,
5 minutes, I
he
think. It was with that belly to belly or belly to belly overhead kind of throw. I think Brock gives him. That's the clip they showed anyway. I'm not sure if that's exactly when.
I don't know because Taker said he doesn't know, so I doubt
Yeah,
that's the actual clip. But anyways, if that's the case, 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the match, Taker performed very well for a man who's in a fucking concussion.
and in a Brock Lesnar match. But again, I think it's just muscle memory. His body took over because he's been a worker for like
Yeah, we
what
were
about like
saying that we
25 years?
watched it at the time. Yeah,
Yeah. So then we have the introduction of Cody Rhodes. He comes into it. We have PGR beginning, Women's Evolution, Shane's return and the Taker feud. Clip of the real glass suplex spot between McMahon and between Shane and Kurt. So again, the OG Jack Perry shows up. Let's go, baby.
Cry me a river.
Yeah, cry me a river, Kurt. All right. So then we have Shane punctuating the discussion of all like the clips of insane high spots he did and the leaps off the top rope with all he was looking for was a pat on the back from his dad is absolutely crushing.
That's
Like, and again, it
that
cuts
is
to Vince.
heartbreaking.
It's horrible, and it cuts to Vince, and Vince was like, "Well, there wasn't much pats on the back, I guess, but I never got that from my dad, and I turned out all right." Yeah, okay, Vince. All right, buddy.
Break the
Yeah,
cycle. Break
yeah,
the
true. Yeah.
cycle. Yeah.
he's a billionaire. To be fair,
I mean, he was only told what the day before Vince Senior died that his father was proud of him and loved him, which is
allegedly.
crazy. Allegedly, yeah, that's what Vince says in the doc. And then we had Taker
I don't
saying,
believe his dad ever said he loved him.
"I don't think so either,"
Yeah, no.
but Vince says so we'll believe him, right? And then we had a cut of the super cut of most of the talking heads saying, "Yeah, I had a really father-son relationship with Vince. It was like a father and son to me. He was like a father to me." Taker saying he'd take a bullet for him, which I do fully believe he would. I
Yeah,
fully believe Mark would. Then there was a mention of AEW cropping up in 2019 as competition. We had the build up of everyone saying that Vince would never retire, only to bring the news of Vince stepping down. And the last cut before that was, oh, who was it? who was it? About someone said, an atomic bomb would have to go off. Was it Booker T? Booker T. I think it was Booker T. He was like, oh, atomic bomb would have to go off for Vince to retire. And then the atomic bomb dropped in the form of the Janelle Grant lawsuit, which drug out everything else underneath there. So we had 2006 allegations of assault at a tanning salon, which Vince turned into a storyline because, haha, isn't that funny? Good one, Vince, you freak. We had the selling of WWE post the Vince return, the Netflix deal. Pritchard not being happy about the portrayal of Vince in the episodes he saw because he said it was just a gotcha piece.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why, right? So he said it was a gotcha piece. He said that all the clips he saw was missing out on the human side of Vince. He stated that he would agree with it if Vince was an asshole, but he's not, so he doesn't agree with it. He did mention some really nice things Vince had done for him, namely his wife, who got diagnosed with cancer.
And he prolonged her life 24 years.
I'm mentioning that. So about 24 years ago, she got diagnosed with cancer. She was given a prognosis of 4 years by the doctors. Vince got her the best treatment, cared for her, and 24 years later, she's still kicking, I think, which is a really nice thing. Bad people can do nice things, you know?
Especially
I don't think it's devoid of that, right? Also very true. But anyways, again, it was a nice thing Vince did, right? It was a nice thing he did. And then Janelle Grant's lawsuit and the Ashley Mazzaro allegations of assault and harassment of a sexual nature. She obviously then sadly passed away. I think it was 10 years after the allegations.
Yeah,
I think.
And
that was the end. Yeah, that was the end of it then. And Vince stated at the end about legacy. Everyone was asked about Vince's legacy. It left no one answer it. Everyone was just kind of dumbfounded. Tony Atlas said he's the greatest promoter to have ever lived, and he might do a lot of personal or business related things I don't agree with, but you can't take that away from him. Then they asked Vince about his legacy, and he kind of ponders on it, and he eventually ends up ending the interview after denying the conflation of the Mr. McMahon character and Vince's personal persona and who he is. He says that he doesn't really know who he is. He says that I think the Vince McMahon character and the Mr. McMahon character are both very similar. I think one's more exaggerated. I just don't know which one is. It's all a blur. And that's how we end off the Vince McMahon documentary. And that was it, as concisely as we could go, I guess.
Can I mention two things?
Yes.
Shoot, brother.
First of all, the opening to the last episode's absolutely fucked. You know, where he starts speaking about the fucking operating like 2 or 3 minds. I was like, oh, what's the other mind speaking about? And he's like, oh, something to do with sex. And then it goes into everything else. Like, I don't know who in the fucking right mind talks about that, especially with considering at that point in time, everything would have been going on, you know?
Well, I don't know at that point because his interviews, that first batch was 2021. I don't think he came back after the allegations started coming out.
No. I know that, yeah. But like in 2021, the whole it would have fit into the timeline of the Janelle Grant lawsuit and like everything that was happening to her. You know,
I thought 2022 because I think that was the first set of allegations because he was around for a bit.
No, not the allegations itself. Like,
what was going on? Sorry.
Hush money.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
I think it's absolutely fucked if you know that you're doing that at that point in time. Like, why would you open a Netflix doc like that? The second thing I want to talk about is Bruce to an extent, because look, I know we were talking about this in the group chat, and I know for a majority of this episode I'm playing the heel or the devil's advocate for Bruce in this regard. But yeah, thank you. But Bruce's little interview with regards to his wife and being prolonged to 24 years because of the cancer, etc., and Vince treating her nicely, it reminded me of like a Doctor Who quote, right? To which it's spoken to like a villain that's like a mass fucking murderer in London, etc., fucking whatever. And it's something along the lines of every now and again, the only reason you're able to live with yourself is because you let someone go, because you did something nice, because someone smiled, or they were blonde, or they had cute freckles, or they fluttered their eyelashes, and you thought, I'll let this one get away. You did a
Yeah.
nice thing. It doesn't stop you from being a bad person, but it's how you live with yourself, right?
Mm,
And
that
and
makes
it
sense.
highlights so much for me in that moment where it's like, okay, I understand why Bruce feels so strongly about it. I'm not going to
Oh yeah.
go and be, look, you're a bastard. How could you defend such a bad person? I understand from a personal perspective, you have the love of your life, essentially 20 years more because of one specific person. I understand it's hard to waver your loyalties because of that, but it doesn't stop him from being the person that did everything else.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Like bad people can do good things, and
Yeah.
that was a good thing. And I would go as far to say it was probably a selfless act by Vince. Like
Mhm.
Bruce has been his guy for a very, very long time. And they're good friends. Like just because someone's a horrible monster doesn't mean they can't do good things every now and again. And that was a really sweet and lovely thing he's done for Bruce. Like
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was a selfless thing. I wouldn't go that far. I'd say it was purely just for the fact that either he needed Bruce in top tier form, he needed Bruce's loyalty, or in his own mind, he just needed to do something good. It was that
Something
time.
good, yeah.
It was that time in the cycle. I was like, right, I fucked over a lot of people. I've done a lot of bad things. Let's do one good thing, and I can live myself for the next couple of decades.
Yeah, fair. David?
Yeah, just I agree with that. Like, obviously, there is a personal aspect in which I think it is true. It is a nice thing to
Mm,
essentially extend someone's life for decades. It's a good thing to help, but also, yeah,
yeah,
a few good deeds, and he's done a lot of good both for the industry and for certain people. But the
of course.
sheer amount of people whose lives he has ruined, or he is indirectly responsible for either the drastic worsening or in some cases the death end of their lives, it is just like
Yeah.
Veroni said, you cannot sort of you can live with yourself, but the rest of the world's not
Mm,
going to forgive you. Yeah, hold on a sec.
yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, was the Vince McMahon doc.
Yeah, no worries.
I think it was a really
Bye.
concise, nice history and background of the company and Vince as a whole. I would really like to rewatch it with someone who isn't a fan and who doesn't know anything. I think that's the best way to get the most out of it.
I'd love to see what Dara thinks about it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'd love to like anyone who
We'll
isn't a
get him
fan or
on.
doesn't know.
We'll get him on
Yeah, we should. We
one day.
definitely should.
Yeah.
Because I think the best way to digest it, because obviously all of us know like the majority, like there was new bits for me here and there, new bits for Sean here and there, and I'm sure David a few new bits for you, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know a lot, so
Yeah.
um. But I think the best way to view it, if you haven't seen it already, is sit yourself down next to someone who has no clue what's going on or any of the allegations. It is a lot to take in,
It is. It
especially if
really
you
is. Yeah.
binge it one after the other. I would say maybe at max do 2 episodes a night. Don't run through 6 of them like I did. Just a lot to take in. But yeah, I think overall, for what they were trying to do, as a documentary for the public and people who don't follow this stuff, I think it was really, really well done. It
Yeah.
looked great. It was done well. I think they could have challenged Vince on a one-to-one basis more, but they did enough by splicing in clips and different interviews that contradicted him. So they did paint him that way, just not directly.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the doc. I didn't think it was good. Um, and
I didn't think it was good.
I'll clarify that because, like, look, uh, to an extent,
Mhm.
I understand Vince's life is the business, etc. But it was very much for, in my opinion, 4 of the 6 episodes just about business, right? And the
Yeah.
controversies that came up with it. I understand the image you're trying to paint. I understand the stories that you need to paint that image are with the controversies, the tragedies that have come with the business over 4 decades, right? Whilst he was in charge. But if you're going to make a documentary about Vince McMahon and his
Yeah.
personal life, you need to stop looking at it from a so this was what was going on in the company at that point in time, and start asking him about how did this make you feel? Like I would have much rather, like, if you're talking about the Attitude Era, cool. Sell the Attitude Era for what it was for a few moments. I think it made a lot of people look poor when it was like, I can't believe we got away with this shit at that point in time. Especially Paul, if I'm honest with you. Like we were getting people who showed fucking tits, and
Wait,
He doesn't care.
you mean
He
Levesque,
still
right?
doesn't care. Yeah.
yeah,
You mean Daddy Trips? All right, yeah, no, he did not look great. I mean, they
No.
showed the Katie Big stuff, the Steph stuff. You know, he had a
No.
lot for old Trips.
but I much would have rather, like, okay, how did you feel when Hogan left? Cool, we felt
Well,
this way, and we needed to pivot, and we transitioned. How did you like? I'm glad we got the whole. How did you feel about the fucking the click hugging and fucking steel cage match after the show? Fucking like, because you have him finally address it. I'm glad we have him finally for the first time address Chris Benoit directly, and since the fucking tragedy itself. But I would have really been curious about, like, certain situations about, like, okay, how did you feel when Austin took his ball and went home? Rock
yeah,
went off to
I
do movies.
I think
How,
with just with the Hogan stuff, he did actually say how he felt after that. He said that it broke his heart, and
yeah,
Shane
that
backed
was
that up as well, which was nice because like there are very few people I feel like Vince sees on a more personal level who work for him. There's
like,
Hogan, there's Taker,
mhm.
and I don't know
Rock.
who else. Maybe Rock and
Andre,
Austin.
Andre,
Cena's one. Hunter, I
Andre,
don't know. Hunter, I
Andre hasn't
really
started
don't know.
crying.
No, I know, but like I really don't know how he feels about Hunter. I think
Mm.
he thinks he's okay for Stephanie. I don't know. I don't think he has the love.
Special. He was special.
Yeah, but I don't think he has the love that he like he has love for Taker and Hogan and
No, I get
probably
that, but
Cena and
He's
Rock
loyal
and Austin.
dogs.
Yeah, they're his boys, right? And Taker never left either.
yeah, like, okay, look, but like at the same time though, like like, as a wrestling fan, right?
Yeah,
Because majority of the documentary, bar, like, I'd say I could count on a handful of time, like, instances of things that I don't know. Like, I didn't know about the ring boy situation. I
yeah,
didn't know about a couple of things, right?
yeah.
I don't think there was enough in the documentary to which, if you're a wrestling fan, which is their primary audience in this instance, that was new, to which you went,
I
fuck, I didn't know that, right?
I I don't know if I don't think the wrestling like super fans or hardcore fans or whatever the three of us would be described as is their
Marks.
main audience. Just yeah, like I don't I don't think we were their main audience. I think the idea for this doc was to hit the wider either casual viewing audience or people who don't watch it. It was a Netflix doc to watch. It was like Tiger King, right? Like Tiger King wasn't aimed specifically at people who owned tigers, you know, like it wasn't specifically for that group of people. The same way it's gonna fall short for us because we know most of the shit. You know, we know most of the stuff that went on, so it's not gonna have that shock value for us,
I
which is
suppose it's
why
just bringing a
yeah,
lot of things into the mainstream eye, but, like,
yeah, yeah,
at the same time, I don't know. Look, considering that the documentary is certainly not what the project was first envisioned as,
yeah,
um, I think both parties can agree in that instance. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but if you're going to go and you're going to go, right, okay, we've recognized that we have essentially this intellectual property that we're going to release about this horrible man, fucking, and you're trying, because I understand you're trying to tell a story to which, like, you're going to humanize him and then you're going to destroy him
yeah,
because he was a person and then he did that to himself, right?
yeah,
You're highlighting a bunch of things. I would have been very curious to find out about certain things that I wish, like not that I wish I didn't know, but like that the public probably shouldn't know. Um, and we're at a point now to which they could. Like, I'm very upset that for whatever fucking reason, Eddie Guerrero's mentioned in the fucking entire pod, or sorry, in the entire documentary, is he died before the age of 45. I think that's shit. How the fuck do you not go into that a bit more?
Yeah, but again, at the same time, it's like they were trying to focus, as you said, they were trying to focus. They didn't fully focus, but they were trying to focus more so on Vince, so that it was never going to be a big mention for Guerrero. I don't know. Again, it's so fresh.
Well,
I
it's
think you
less
could
than a
sit
year from
and
the Benoit tragedy,
no,
like.
I know, no, I know, I get you 100%. But again, I think we can let it ruminate a bit because we could sit and we could debate this for another like 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
But
That's it.
in the interest of finishing before I go to work later, I think we could move on to the week in wrestling.
Actually, I
Yeah, sure.
think we've done a lot of this. So I'm gonna take a suggestion that Jeff had earlier. We're gonna split this episode in two, and we're gonna
Perfect.
end this episode off here. So, any closing
Lovely
thoughts
stuff.
about the documentary before we head off?
Um, I think it was for what it started as and what it pivoted to and what it ended up as. I think they did really well with what they were trying to do.
Yeah,
I think if you haven't watched it, watch it with someone who has no clue about like the world of professional wrestling, because I think that's the best, because it's just lawsuit here, different scandal here, like that's the way you get the best out of it as a person who knows most of it. But I
mm-hmm.
I would urge people to watch it. I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
All right, Sean.
I think they took Plumpy's top 10 things WWE wants you to forget about Vince McMahon, and they just went, right, we're making a 6 episode format about this.
Yeah. That's pretty good, David.
Yeah, I think for what they were trying to do and what they could get out of the people that they were interviewing, I think they did a pretty good job. I
Yeah.
think just as a sort of corporate move, considering that again WWE will be on Netflix in a few months,
Yeah.
doing a
Pretty
documentary
close.
distancing the company, Netflix, and some of the most recognizable stars from Vince is a good idea.
Yeah.
There are certain
Yeah.
things that left out that really annoyed and frustrated me, but I am glad that at least more people, including some people who will watch this, are probably Laps fans, who now know about just how evil Vince is and why exactly he was removed.
Yeah. Perfect.
But
It's hard to describe as a psychopath, to be fair. Like,
sociopath. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of words we could use to
Well,
describe Vince,
psychopath
but
and
again,
sociopath are both outdated terms now. So, yeah.
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I don't know if yous have ever had this instance because, like, yous are tragic with women. Sorry.
all right. Oh, hold on, get fucked. All right,
But like,
stop being
right,
mean.
I might have
but like
stuff to
in
talk
my
about
last
next week about that.
well, in like for example, in my like last relationship, fucking, I got her into wrestling and all that, right? And she enjoyed it. She was very fond of the sport. She fucking loved it, right?
Hmm.
And she was kind of like one of the days I was in work, she wasn't. She was watching the older content. She was like, "Who's this chap?" And I was like, "Oh, that's Vinnie Mac." And she was like, "Who's he?" And I was like,
Uh,
"Oh, we don't have the time of day to fucking describe Vinnie Mac. If I'm honest with you, you have to spend
yeah,
years of fucking research on Vinnie Mac." And she was like, "Why?" And I kind of just went, was like, within like half an hour I was like, "Right, here's a Rolodex of fucking terrible things or bad ideas he's had that make him sound absolutely insane. Like he's the champ that fucking wrestled God and won, fucking shit like that. Like being
yeah,
really serious to fucking kayfabe,
yeah,
right? Just ideas that he had." And she was like, "He sounds like a loony bin." I was like, "Yeah, that's the loony bin that ran this organization for 40 fucking years, It's difficult to describe him, but in a 6 episode doc on Netflix, the first like, look, I'm going to operate on the idea that this is a season one, right? If this is season one, it did very well. It did fine. in season 2, you're not going to have a Vinnie Man talking head. You're not probably going to have anyone from the Fed. Maybe Bruce Pritchard, because he's a stupid cunt, came back for the interviews. But fucking, I think it's a great opportunity to have a whole series that you could do very similar to Dark Side of the Ring, and then have all the stories come out in its true light and form. Because
I think the best in regards to that, I think it'd be better if Netflix just buys Dark Side of the Ring, but they won't because there's too much bad things on it that relate to the WWE and not catered towards just being Vince's fault, you know?
yeah, have their own product. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
as
David?
I was gonna say as my closing statement, go watch Dark Side of the Ring, but
Yeah,
I think
go watch Dark Side of the Ring, all of it.
yeah, it's
don't. It's really depressing.
Well, yeah, but for what this was and what the purpose is trying to serve, I think it's done very well. It could be better, but nothing's ever going to be
Yeah.
perfect. And the fact that we're able to get some of the people to be interviewed is a massive thing. And I'm going to be interested in seeing what the impact of this, both in terms of how WWE is received in general and how it will be received moving to Netflix in the future, will be. And when that happens, we'll be able to talk about it here. This group of idiots right here. Yeah.
I still stand by my whole perspective of I can't wait for Raw to be on Netflix. The episode ends live, and then it goes, "What would other people have watched?" Vince McMahon.
Yeah, yeah, true. But anyways, I think that's it from us.
On that note, yeah, you know, we're gonna have social media set up in the next few days. Go follow us on there. We'll probably link it to in the edited sort of description of this video. And remember, just if you like stuff in wrestling, like it, because wrestling should be fun. Goodbye.
Wrestling should be fun.
Shouldn't have